The following video is intended solely for educational and entertainment purposes. It does not constitute formal legal, financial, accounting, or business advisory services. The information provided herein is based on general industry trends and case studies, and should not be construed as a guarantee of specific results or financial success. Starting and operating an auto repair business involves significant risks, including market volatility, regulatory compliance challenges, and capital expenditure obligations. Viewers are strongly advised to conduct their own independent research, perform comprehensive due diligence, and consult with certified professionals, such as attorneys, CPAs, and commercial insurance agents, prior to making any business decisions, signing leases, or investing capital. 80% of independent auto repair shops fail within their first 5 years. Let that sink in. You have the skills. You can rebuild a transmission blindfolded. You diagnose electrical gremlins that leave dealership technicians scratching their heads. But being an exceptional mechanic has absolutely nothing to do with running a successful, profitable business. In fact, relying solely on your technical skills is the exact reason most new shop owners end up bankrupt, exhausted, and working for someone else again before the decade is out. They focus entirely on the wrenches and completely ignore the spreadsheets, the marketing, and the customer acquisition strategy. Today, we are tearing down the romanticized idea of just opening garage doors and waiting for the cars to roll in. We are going to look at why that traditional model is dead, and what the top 20% of shop owners are doing differently to build multi-million-dollar operations while working fewer hours than when they were turning wrenches themselves. By the end of this 10-part masterclass, you will have the exact blueprint that separates the mechanics who buy themselves a stressful, low-paying job from the entrepreneurs who build legacy wealth in the automotive industry. But I must warn you, the first step we are about to cover is the most overlooked, unglamorous part of the process, and skipping it is the equivalent of trying to rebuild an engine without draining the oil first. You are watching this because you are tired of making flat rate for a service manager who does not respect you. You are tired of generating thousands of dollars a day in revenue for a dealership while taking home a fraction of that value. You want autonomy, you want control over your earning potential, and you want to build an asset that has real enterprise value. This masterclass is designed specifically for the U.S. market, addressing the current realities of the American automotive landscape. We will address the technician shortage, the rising costs of diagnostic equipment, and the shifting consumer expectations that are forcing old-school shops into early retirement. This is not a theoretical overview. This is a granular, actionable 10-step checklist grounded in case studies of shops that have successfully navigated the transition from a one-bay operation to a multi-location enterprise. The gap between a talented technician and a successful shop owner is massive, and bridging that gap requires a fundamental shift in identity. You have spent years, perhaps decades, mastering the physical and diagnostic aspects of vehicle repair. You understand the intricate relationship between sensors, modules, and mechanical components. However, the ecosystem of a business operates on entirely different principles. The lifeblood of your new venture will not be motor oil or transmission fluid. It will be cash flow, customer retention rates, and operational efficiency. The transition begins the moment you realize that your primary job is no longer fixing cars. Your primary job is acquiring and retaining customers who need their cars fixed, and building a system that allows those cars to be fixed profitably and consistently, whether you are physically in the building or not. Consider the reality of the modern auto repair landscape in the United States. Vehicles are becoming increasingly complex, resembling rolling computers more than traditional mechanical machines. This technological shift demands significant capital investment in advanced diagnostic equipment, software subscriptions, and continuous training. A shop that relies solely on turning wrenches on older models is severely limiting its total addressable market and its profit margins. The most profitable work often lies in complex diagnostics, ADAS calibrations, and hybrid or electric vehicle maintenance. Therefore, your business plan must account not just for the tools you need today, but the technology you will need to service the vehicles dominating the roads 5 years from now. Furthermore, the industry is currently facing an unprecedented shortage of qualified technicians. While you may be starting as an owner-operator, the ultimate goal of any sustainable business is scalability. If your business model relies entirely on your physical labor, you have not created a business. You have simply created a job with higher liability and longer hours. To build enterprise value, you must eventually transition from working in the business to working on the business. This means creating an environment, a compensation structure, and a company culture that attracts and retains top-tier talent in a highly competitive labor market. You will need to understand the nuances of flat rate versus hourly compensation, the implementation of efficiency bonuses, and the creation of clear career progression paths for your employees. This leads us to the critical distinction between revenue and profit. It is entirely possible and unfortunately common for a shop to generate $1 million in gross revenue and still lose money. Understanding your key performance indicators or KPIs is non-negotiable. You must know your effective labor rate, your parts margin, your bay productivity, and your customer acquisition cost. These are not abstract financial terms. They are the dials and levers you will use to steer your business away from insolvency and toward profitability. For instance, if your posted labor rate is $150 an hour, but due to discounts, comebacks, and inefficient dispatching, your effective labor rate drops to $90 an hour, your business model is fundamentally flawed, regardless of how many cars are in the parking lot. Customer acquisition and retention also require a sophisticated approach that goes far beyond taking out an ad in the local paper or relying on word of mouth. While personal referrals are valuable, they are not a predictable or scalable marketing strategy. The modern consumer relies heavily on digital reputation. Your Google My Business profile, your website search engine optimization, and your strategy for managing online reviews will directly impact your car count. You must understand the lifetime value of a customer. A client who comes in for a cheap oil change might yield minimal immediate profit, but if your service advisors are trained to perform comprehensive vehicle inspections and clearly communicate necessary maintenance without aggressive sales tactics, that same client represents thousands of dollars in potential revenue over the lifespan of their vehicle. This is the magnitude of the challenge and the opportunity before you. We are not just talking about securing a lease and buying a few lifts. We are discussing the architecture of a resilient, profitable enterprise in a complex and competitive industry. Over the course of this 10-part series, we will systematically deconstruct every critical phase of this journey. We will examine the intricacies of securing commercial real estate, negotiating leases, structuring your corporate entity for maximum liability protection and tax efficiency, acquiring the necessary licenses and insurance, building a robust supply chain for parts, implementing effective shop management software, and developing standard operating procedures that ensure consistent quality control. The path ahead requires rigorous planning, intellectual honesty about your current skill gaps, and a willingness to embrace the uncomfortable realities of entrepreneurship. If you are prepared to abandon the romanticized view of shop ownership and commit to the discipline of business management, the potential rewards are substantial. You have the opportunity to build an asset that provides financial security for your family, creates jobs in your community, and establishes a legacy of quality service. Let us begin the process of building that foundation. Step 1 is not finding a building, and it is certainly not buying expensive tools. Step 1 is executing ruthless, data-driven market research to define your precise operational niche. The days of the traditional generalist repair shop are effectively over. We are operating in the year 2026, and the automotive landscape has fractured into highly specialized, technologically advanced segments. If you attempt to open a facility that claims to expertly fix everything from a 1999 domestic pickup truck to a brand new European electric vehicle, you are setting yourself up for an operational nightmare. You will spread your startup capital far too thin attempting to purchase every necessary aftermarket and original equipment diagnostic scanner. Your technicians will face an impossible daily learning curve trying to master dozens of different manufacturer engineering philosophies, and you will inevitably be forced to compete purely on price against massive corporate discount chains. Consider a historical case study based on common industry trends over the last few years. Take a hypothetical shop owner named David operating out of Columbus, Ohio. 2 years ago, David opened a generic, do-it-all auto repair business. He accepted every vehicle that limped onto his lot. Within 6 months, his operation was suffocating. On lift 1, he had an old rusted minivan requiring a custom fabricated brake line, a notoriously low-margin job tying up his bay and his best technician for 2 full days. On lift 2, he had a modern German luxury sedan with a complex fiber optic network failure that his generic aftermarket scanner could not communicate with, forcing him to ultimately tow the vehicle to a local dealership, lose the profit, and lose the customer forever. David was working 80-hour weeks, his parts procurement process was chaotic because he was dealing with 20 different regional suppliers, and his profit margins were virtually non-existent. Imagine if David had taken a different, more strategic approach. Imagine if, before ever signing a lease, he had spent 3 months analyzing the specific demographic and vehicle registration data of his target zip codes. He might have discovered that his specific county in Ohio had experienced a 40% surge in the registration of hybrid and electric vehicles over the past 3 years. He might have also realized that the nearest independent shop certified in high-voltage system repair and thermal management diagnostics was 45 miles away. By positioning his business strictly as the premier alternative fuel vehicle diagnostics center in the region, David could have captured a highly affluent, desperate market. His posted labor rate could have easily been positioned 30 to 40% higher than the local average, not out of greed, but because he would be providing a highly specialized, in-demand technical service that generalists cannot legally, safely, or accurately perform. To replicate this targeted approach, you must perform a granular demographic analysis of your specific territory. You cannot simply look at the total population of a city. You must actively research the median household income, the average vehicle age, and the commuter patterns within a 5 to 10 mile radius of your proposed physical location. If you are looking at an area where the median household income is $45,000 and the average vehicle age is 14 years, opening a specialized European performance and tuning shop is a catastrophic mismatch of market and service. In that specific demographic, historical trends dictate that a business model focused on affordable, high-volume preventive maintenance, suspension work, and standard brake repair will capture the most market share. Conversely, if you locate your shop in an affluent suburb with a high concentration of out-of-warranty luxury SUVs, offering discount oil changes is leaving massive amounts of potential enterprise value on the table. Beyond retail consumers, your market research must aggressively target commercial fleet accounts. Fleet maintenance is the ultimate stabilizing force for an independent auto repair shop. While retail customer volume fluctuates heavily with economic seasons, inflation, and weather patterns, commercial fleets must remain operational at all times to generate revenue. Plumbing companies, local delivery services, HVAC contractors, and municipal utility providers lose hundreds of dollars every single hour their vans are out of commission. If you can build a service model tailored entirely around fleet uptime, prioritizing their vehicles in your dispatch system, and offering structured preventive maintenance schedules, you create a baseline of highly predictable monthly revenue. Securing just 3 or 4 mid-size fleet accounts can entirely cover your monthly facility lease and utility overhead before a single retail customer ever discovers your business. You must also conduct a stealth competitor analysis within your local radius. Identifying your competition is not about counting how many garages are listed on a map or searching online directories. It is about understanding their operational weaknesses and capacity limits. You should call the 5 highest-rated shops in your target radius. Present yourself as a potential customer and ask highly specific, technical questions. Ask them if they have the necessary OEM software subscriptions to flash a transmission control module on a late-model domestic truck. Ask them what their current lead time is for an advanced driver assistance system calibration after a windshield replacement. When you find that 9 out of 10 shops are completely declining complex module programming or quoting a 3-week wait time for forward-facing radar calibrations, you have just identified a massive, unfulfilled demand in your local market. You then build your business model entirely around solving the exact complex problems your competitors are actively turning away. This level of meticulous preparation is what separates a mechanic trying to hustle from a strategic business owner building wealth. When you eventually approach a commercial lender or a private investor for startup capital, you will not be presenting a generic dream of turning wrenches. You will present a comprehensive data packet proving that your specific zip code contains 6,000 out-of-warranty Asian import vehicles, but only 2 independent shops properly equipped to service them. You will show them letters of intent from local electrical contractors who have conditionally agreed to transition their fleet maintenance to your facility upon opening. This groundwork validates your business hypothesis and dramatically reduces the perceived risk for anyone backing your venture financially. However, identifying your perfect niche and mapping out your target demographic will be completely worthless if you make the most common, unrecoverable financial mistake in the automotive industry. It is a trap that has forced thousands of brilliant technicians into sudden bankruptcy within their first 12 months of operation, and it has absolutely nothing to do with fixing cars. The fine print in commercial real estate can legally obligate you to pay for a new structural roof, full parking lot repaving, and massive environmental compliance upgrades that you never budgeted for. How do you navigate the predatory world of commercial property, negotiate a lease that heavily favors your business, and actually force the landlord to pay for your initial shop build-out. That is exactly what we are exposing in the next step. Step 2 of your operational blueprint demands mastering the treacherous landscape of commercial real estate. You have identified your highly specialized niche and isolated the exact demographic territory that will support your business model in the year 2026. Now, you must secure the physical infrastructure to execute your plan. The vast majority of aspiring shop owners approach this phase with a fatal level of naivety. They drive around industrial parks, spot a vacant cinderblock building with roll-up bay doors, and immediately contact the leasing agent. Driven by the emotional excitement of finally opening their own facility, they sign a standard commercial lease agreement without consulting specialized legal counsel. This impulsive action is the root cause of countless historical bankruptcies in the automotive sector. A commercial lease is absolutely nothing like a residential apartment lease. It is a highly complex, aggressively negotiated corporate contract designed by specialized attorneys to transfer as much financial liability as legally possible from the property owner directly onto your shoulders. To understand the magnitude of this threat, we must dissect the mechanics of the triple net lease, commonly referred to as an NNN lease. In the commercial real estate sector, particularly for industrial and automotive properties, the triple net lease is the industry standard. When a leasing agent quotes you a base rent of $5,000 a month, that number is a dangerous illusion. In a triple net lease, you are not just paying for the space. You, the tenant, are legally obligated to pay the base rent, plus your proportionate share of the property taxes, plus the building insurance premiums, plus the common area maintenance fees. Furthermore, the standard language in these contracts typically makes the tenant completely responsible for all structural repairs and mechanical replacements. Consider a practical case study involving a technician named Michael, who opened a diagnostic center in Phoenix, Arizona. Michael found a moderately aged facility in a prime location. He signed a 5-year triple net lease, focusing only on the affordable base rent and ignoring the boilerplate liability clauses. 7 months into his first year of operation, the main commercial air conditioning unit completely failed during a historic heat wave. Michael contacted the property management company, assuming the landlord would dispatch a repair crew. Instead, the management company directed him to Section 4 of his lease agreement, which clearly stated that all HVAC replacement costs were the sole responsibility of the occupying tenant. Michael was suddenly forced to secure an emergency $25,000 high-interest loan just to make his shop habitable for his employees. 14 months later, the municipal property taxes on the building were aggressively reassessed due to new commercial developments in the surrounding Phoenix metropolitan area. Because he was locked into a triple net lease with no negotiated cap on tax escalations, his monthly operational overhead surged by 35%. Michael lacked the cash flow to absorb these cascading financial liabilities and was forced to liquidate his equipment and close his doors before his 3rd anniversary. Imagine if Michael had approached that exact same building with the mindset of a strategic enterprise builder rather than an eager mechanic. Imagine if he had engaged a commercial real estate broker who exclusively represents tenants, alongside an attorney well-versed in automotive industry liabilities. During the initial letter of intent phase, Michael could have aggressively negotiated a roof and structural exclusion clause, legally forcing the landlord to retain all financial responsibility for the foundation, the exterior walls, the roof membrane, and the primary HVAC systems. He could have negotiated a strict annual cap on common area maintenance increases, protecting his business from unpredictable surges in operating costs. Most importantly, he could have leveraged the landlord's desire for a long-term, recession-resistant tenant to secure a massive tenant improvement allowance. A tenant improvement allowance is capital provided directly by the landlord to build out or renovate the commercial space to meet your specific operational needs. Landlords are highly motivated to secure stable tenants in 2026, as shifts in the broader economy have left many industrial spaces vacant. When you present your meticulous, data-driven business plan, you negotiate from a position of profound strength. You can demand that the landlord provide $50,000 or even $100,000 in tenant improvement funds to upgrade the electrical infrastructure, pour high-strength concrete pads for your automotive lifts, and install proper ventilation systems. You are permanently improving the value of their commercial asset, and they should bear the capital expenditure for those permanent upgrades. Beyond the financial trap of the lease itself, you must forensically evaluate the physical limitations and environmental history of the facility. The automotive repair industry is subjected to intense regulatory scrutiny by environmental protection agencies. Never sign a lease or purchase a commercial property without demanding a Phase 1 environmental site assessment. If the previous tenant was a reckless operator who illegally dumped waste oil into the floor drains or allowed toxic solvents to seep into the surrounding soil, the environmental protection agencies can legally hold you, the current operator, completely liable for a catastrophic multi-million-dollar environmental cleanup process. The Phase 1 assessment is your mandatory shield against inheriting someone else's toxic liability. You must also evaluate the hidden physical infrastructure of the building. The dimensions of the space dictate your potential revenue capacity. Modern vehicles, particularly heavy-duty commercial transit vans and large battery electric vehicles, require significant overhead clearance. If you lease a building with a 12-foot ceiling clearance, you will be physically incapable of fully raising a high-roof commercial van on a symmetric two-post lift. This single oversight permanently eliminates an entire segment of highly profitable commercial fleet revenue from your business model. You must verify that the concrete floor is structurally rated to safely anchor heavy-duty automotive lifts, requiring a minimum depth of 6 inches of 3,000 psi reinforced concrete. Furthermore, you must evaluate the electrical capacity of the building. We are operating in an era where advanced diagnostic equipment, heavy-duty rotary screw air compressors, and Level 2 electric vehicle charging stations require massive electrical draw. A building wired with standard single-phase residential power will cripple your operation. You must ensure the facility is equipped with, or can be easily upgraded to, a robust 3-phase electrical service. If you fail to verify this during the inspection period, you will face an unexpected $40,000 electrical retrofitting bill before you can even turn on your air compressor. Finally, you must analyze the logistics of the parking lot and the ingress and egress of the property. A shop operating 4 repair bays requires an absolute minimum of 16 dedicated parking spaces to maintain operational flow. You must account for employee parking, customer drop-offs, vehicles waiting for backordered parts, and completed vehicles awaiting pickup. If your lot is too small, your technicians will waste hours every week simply playing musical chairs with customer cars, destroying your daily efficiency metrics. You must also ensure the driveway apron and turning radius can easily accommodate a heavy-duty flatbed tow truck dropping off a disabled 1-ton pickup truck during peak business hours. You have now systematically identified your profitable demographic niche, secured a facility with the proper zoning and structural infrastructure, and executed a fiercely negotiated commercial lease that protects your cash flow and forces the landlord to fund your physical build-out. You are standing inside a pristine, environmentally certified, legally protected commercial warehouse. But right now it is just an empty room. To generate revenue, you need equipment. And the moment you open your doors, the mobile tool truck franchises and equipment financiers will descend upon you, offering predatory financing terms and attempting to saddle your new business with a mountain of high-interest debt before you ever service your first customer. How do you acquire state-of-the-art diagnostic scanners, alignment racks, and automotive lifts for pennies on the dollar without destroying your startup capital? That is exactly what we are exposing in the next step. Step 3 of building your enterprise is mastering capital allocation, specifically regarding the procurement of heavy equipment and diagnostic technology. The moment you register your corporate entity, you will become the primary target for equipment salespeople and mobile tool franchise distributors. They understand the psychology of the automotive technician perfectly. For a decade, you have been conditioned to associate professional success with massive, brightly colored toolboxes and the absolute newest, most expensive proprietary scan tools. When you transition from technician to owner, this deeply ingrained psychological conditioning becomes your greatest financial liability. Purchasing brand new, top-of-the-line equipment for every single bay on day one is the fastest way to suffocate your working capital and drown your nascent business in predatory, high-interest debt. To understand the severity of this trap, we must examine historical trends within the industry. Consider a case study of a highly skilled master technician named Jason, who opened a facility in Dallas, Texas. Jason secured a beautiful commercial space, but he allowed his ego to dictate his equipment purchasing strategy. He financed 3 brand new $10,000 diagnostic scanners, purchased completely new alignment racks at retail price, and signed a punishing financing agreement for a $50,000 tool storage system that generated absolutely zero return on investment. Before a single customer drove through his bay doors, Jason was saddled with $12,000 in monthly equipment financing obligations. When the inevitable slow months occurred during his first winter of operation, Jason did not have the cash reserves to cover payroll. His working capital was entirely locked up in depreciating shiny metal assets. He was forced to liquidate the business within 14 months. Imagine if Jason had approached his startup phase with the ruthless financial discipline required in the year 2026. The modern automotive repair landscape is currently experiencing a massive generational turnover. Thousands of traditional shop owners who refuse to adapt to complex electrical architectures and advanced driver assistance systems are actively retiring and liquidating their businesses. This demographic shift presents an unprecedented opportunity for the strategic entrepreneur. Instead of calling a retail equipment distributor, Jason should have been monitoring commercial bankruptcy auctions, retiring shop liquidations, and regional heavy equipment brokers. The fundamental rule of capital allocation in this industry is understanding the difference between static mechanical assets and dynamic technological assets. A heavy-duty, commercial-grade two-post lift manufactured 10 years ago is essentially just high-strength steel, cables, and hydraulic cylinders. If it passes a certified structural safety inspection and receives new hydraulic seals, it will lift a modern electric vehicle just as efficiently as a brand-new model that costs 4 times as much. The same economic reality applies to heavy-duty tire mounting machines, rotary screw air compressors, and transmission jacks. These are static assets. By sourcing meticulously maintained, pre-owned heavy equipment from retiring owners, you can fully outfit a 4-bay facility for 20 cents on the dollar, preserving tens of thousands of dollars in vital working capital. However, you must strictly apply the opposite strategy when it comes to diagnostic technology. In 2026, attempting to save money by purchasing outdated, used scan tools is operational suicide. The computing architecture of modern vehicles requires constant cloud connectivity, secure gateway access, and continuous software updates. This is where you deploy the capital you saved on your heavy equipment. Instead of buying a single massively expensive proprietary aftermarket scanner that attempts to do everything poorly, the highest performing modern shops utilize J2534 pass-through devices paired directly with original equipment manufacturer software subscriptions. Let us look at another case study featuring an entrepreneur named Sarah operating in Atlanta, Georgia. Sarah understood that her competitive advantage lay in deep-level diagnostics. She utilized secondary markets to purchase her physical automotive lifts and air compressors, saving $40,000 against retail estimates. She then strategically deployed a fraction of those savings to purchase robust, enterprise-grade laptop computers, certified J2534 interface modules, and direct annual software subscriptions to the top 5 vehicle manufacturers in her demographic target area. While her competitors were turning away late-model vehicles because their generic aftermarket scanners lacked the security credentials to clear codes or program replacement modules, Sarah was legally and securely logging into the manufacturer servers. She established her facility as the ultimate regional authority for complex module programming, commanding a premium labor rate and operating with profit margins that her competitors simply could not replicate. Furthermore, Sarah understood the strategic leverage of equipment leasing versus outright purchasing when dealing with rapidly depreciating technology. For high-ticket items that become obsolete every 3 years, such as advanced driver assistance system calibration frames and optical alignment targets, tying up your liquid cash is a severe mistake. By utilizing a fair market value commercial equipment lease, Sarah was able to implement cutting-edge technology into her shop immediately, classifying the lease payments as a direct operational expense for tax purposes, while retaining the option to seamlessly upgrade the equipment when the technology inevitably advanced 3 years later. She preserved her cash, protected her technology advantage, and maintained complete operational fluidity. This precise methodology of capital allocation separates the hobbyist from the enterprise builder. You must suppress the urge to build a visually perfect, brand-new showroom of tools, and instead build a highly efficient, financially resilient production facility. Every single dollar you spend before opening must be ruthlessly evaluated, based on its direct capacity to generate a return on investment. If a piece of equipment does not directly increase your bay efficiency, expand your total addressable market, or allow you to bill for a specialized service, it does not belong in your facility on day one. You now possess a fully equipped, technologically advanced facility secured under a favorable commercial lease. Your bays are ready to generate revenue, but an auto repair shop cannot function on labor alone. You must install the precise replacement components required to finalize the repair. And this brings us to the most dangerous daily operational hazard in the industry. Your highly paid technicians are standing idle. the customer is aggressively demanding their vehicle back, and your profit margin on the job is evaporating by the minute because the delivery driver from the local parts warehouse is 3 hours late with the wrong brake rotors. How do you construct an ironclad, multi-tiered supply chain that guarantees you receive high-quality components faster and cheaper than any other shop in your city? That is exactly what we are exposing in the next step. Step 4 of your enterprise architecture requires constructing a resilient, multi-tiered supply chain. In the automotive repair industry, your physical base space and your technician's time are highly perishable commodities. If a vehicle is occupying a lift, completely disassembled, and the technician is standing around waiting for a delivery driver, you are bleeding capital at an alarming rate. Historically, an idle service bay can cost a shop upwards of $150 per hour in lost revenue potential. Multiply that by 4 bays and a few delayed deliveries a week, and your projected annual profit margin completely vanishes. The amateur shop owner relies on a single local auto parts retailer, treating their commercial account exactly like a retail consumer walking in off the street. This single point of failure is a massive operational vulnerability in the year 2026, where global supply chain fluctuations and regional warehouse consolidations have made just-in-time inventory delivery incredibly erratic. Consider the historical case study of a shop owner named Robert, operating a general repair facility in Chicago. Robert established a commercial account with just one major national parts chain. For the first few months, the system functioned adequately. However, during a severe winter storm, his primary vendor experienced a massive logistics failure. Their regional distribution center was paralyzed, and the local hub ran out of basic synthetic oil filters and ceramic brake pads. Because Robert had entirely neglected to build secondary vendor relationships, he had absolutely no contingency plan. He had 6 vehicles completely torn down on his lifts and in his limited parking area. His technicians, who were paid on a flat-rate commission structure, were furious because their earning potential was halted. Customers who relied on their vehicles for daily commuting were demanding rental cars that Robert could not afford to provide. Over a 5-day period, Robert lost thousands of dollars in direct revenue, permanently damaged his local reputation, and watched 2 of his best mechanics walk out the door to work for a competitor who had parts on the shelf. Imagine if Robert had implemented a strategic, multi-tiered vendor matrix from day one. Instead of relying on a single point of failure, imagine if he had categorized his supply chain into 3 distinct operational tiers. Tier 1 would be his primary local warehouse distributor, chosen strictly for their fleet of delivery vehicles and their proximity to his shop, ensuring parts arrive within 30 to 45 minutes for high-volume, immediate need repairs like brake rotors and suspension components. Tier 2 would consist of established wholesale accounts with local original equipment manufacturer dealerships, specifically Ford, General Motors, Toyota, and Honda. This tier is critical in 2026 because aftermarket manufacturers are increasingly failing to replicate the complex electronic sensors and proprietary modules required to repair modern vehicles. Tier 3 would be specialized national overnight distributors, utilized for sourcing obscure European components or heavily discounted bulk maintenance items like fluids and shop supplies. By diversifying his supply chain, Robert would have completely insulated his business from local logistical failures. Building this robust supply chain requires aggressive, professional negotiation. You do not simply fill out an online form and accept the default commercial discount rate. You must arrange face-to-face meetings with the outside commercial sales representatives for every major parts distributor in your territory. These representatives have discretionary power over your pricing tier. When you sit down with them, you present your precisely defined demographic niche and your projected monthly parts purchasing volume. You inform them that you are currently interviewing primary vendors and you want to see their most aggressive pricing matrix. You must negotiate not just the cost of the parts, but the logistics of the delivery. You demand priority routing, ensuring that when their driver leaves the warehouse, your shop is the first stop on their route, not the last. Furthermore, you must establish clear, written protocols for labor claims. If a vendor sells you a defective alternator, replacing the part under warranty is not enough. You must negotiate a commercial agreement where the vendor compensates your shop for the flat-rate labor time required for your technician to perform the job a second time. This protects your margins from catastrophic aftermarket manufacturing defects. Once you have secured your parts at the lowest possible wholesale cost, you must implement a mathematical parts pricing matrix within your shop management software. This is where countless mechanics transition poorly into business owners. They feel guilty marking up the cost of a part, mistakenly believing they are overcharging their friends or neighbors. This emotional pricing strategy will bankrupt your company. You are not simply selling a piece of metal or a plastic sensor. You are selling the logistical service of sourcing the correct component, floating the capital to purchase it, inspecting it for quality, providing a warranty on its performance, and utilizing specialized software to integrate it into the vehicle. Historical industry benchmarks dictate that a healthy independent auto repair shop must maintain a blended overall parts gross profit margin of 40 to 50%. To achieve this specific margin, you cannot apply a flat markup across the board. You must utilize a sliding scale matrix. For low-cost items such as a $10 oil filter or a $15 cabin air filter, your markup might be 200 to 300%. The consumer expects to pay $30 for that filter installed, and they are not cross-referencing wholesale prices on the internet for minor consumables. However, for a high-ticket item, such as a $2,000 rebuilt transmission or an advanced driver assistance system radar module, applying a 300% markup is mathematically absurd and will instantly price you out of the market. On those high-cost components, your markup might shrink to 20 or 30%. The shop management software automatically calculates this sliding scale based on the wholesale cost of the item, removing all human emotion from the estimating process and ensuring that every single repair order meets your required profitability threshold before the service advisor ever presents it to the customer. You must also establish strict standard operating procedures regarding customer-supplied parts and the temptation of online marketplaces. In the current economic climate, consumers will frequently attempt to purchase unbranded, incredibly cheap components from massive online retail aggregators and ask your shop to install them. Furthermore, a desperate shop owner might be tempted to source a highly expensive sensor from an unverified online seller to save a few $100s. You must implement a zero-tolerance policy for this practice. The market is currently flooded with sophisticated counterfeit automotive parts that look identical to original equipment, but contain substandard internal circuitry or inferior metallurgy. If you install a customer-supplied counterfeit brake master cylinder, and it fails catastrophically on the highway, your business, your commercial insurance, and your personal assets will be the primary targets of the resulting litigation. You must clearly educate your clientele that your facility only installs vetted, warranty-backed components sourced directly through your authorized commercial supply chain. You have now secured your facility, optimized your capital allocation for equipment, and built an impenetrable, highly profitable parts supply chain. The infrastructure of your business is completely optimized and ready for high-volume production. There is only one critical element missing, and it is the single most volatile, difficult, and expensive component of the entire automotive repair industry. You cannot fix every car yourself, and if you try, you will burn out and fail. You need highly skilled, technologically literate technicians who can perform complex diagnostics and heavy line repairs with zero supervision. But the national labor pool is completely depleted, and the best mechanics are already comfortably employed at the local luxury dealerships, making excellent annual salaries with full benefits. How do you aggressively attract this top-tier talent? Structure a compensation package that aligns their financial goals with your shop profitability, and build a localized company culture that makes them never want to leave. That is exactly what we are exposing in the next step. Step 5 of your enterprise architecture demands the creation of an elite, mathematically structured human capital strategy. In the year 2026, the American automotive repair industry is navigating a severe and unprecedented labor deficit. The veteran generation of master mechanics, those who built their careers diagnosing mechanical fuel injection and early onboard diagnostic systems, are actively retiring out of the workforce. Simultaneously, the incoming pipeline of vocational school graduates is drastically insufficient to meet the surging national demand. But the crisis goes far deeper than a simple lack of bodies holding wrenches. The vehicles currently occupying your market are essentially rolling, highly sophisticated computer networks. You no longer simply need a mechanic. You require a highly skilled, technologically fluent diagnostic technician who intimately understands complex controller area networks, high-voltage battery thermal management systems, and advanced driver assistance radar calibrations. Attempting to run a modern, highly profitable facility with underqualified personnel is the fastest trajectory toward operational failure and severe liability lawsuits. Consider the historical case study of an ambitious shop owner named Thomas, operating a newly built 6-bay facility in Austin, Texas. Thomas aggressively funded his physical build-out, securing the best location and the highest quality diagnostic scanners on the market. However, he approached the hiring process with a completely outdated, antiquated mindset. He placed generic, uninspiring advertisements on free local job boards, offering a traditional, pure flat-rate compensation structure of $35 per billed hour, with zero guaranteed base salary, no health insurance benefits, and zero paid time off. He expected elite dealership technicians to flock to his independent shop based purely on his new building. Predictably, his advertisements only attracted transient, C-level mechanics with a history of job hopping and severe diagnostic limitations. Desperate to fill his empty bays, Thomas hired them. Within 60 days, his business was collapsing under the weight of diagnostic errors, massive comebacks, and destroyed customer trust. One technician incorrectly wired a replacement hybrid inverter, destroying a $4,000 component that Thomas had to absorb entirely out of pocket. Because Thomas refused to invest in top-tier talent, his expensive facility became a revolving door of low-quality labor, leading to cash flow insolvency and eventual liquidation. Imagine if Thomas had approached the talent acquisition process not as a desperate garage owner, but as a strategic executive headhunter. Imagine if he clearly understood that the top 10% of automotive technicians in Austin were already securely employed at massive luxury dealerships, making excellent annual incomes. These elite technicians are not browsing online job boards. They must be actively and strategically recruited. Thomas should have identified the exact pain points that dealership technicians experience daily in 2026. Dealership mechanics are frequently exhausted by aggressive corporate politics, highly restrictive warranty labor times that severely reduce their weekly paychecks, mandatory and grueling weekend shifts, and the physical toll of working in massive, unair-conditioned service departments during the Texas summer. By meticulously identifying these vulnerabilities, Thomas could have engineered an irresistible recruitment pitch. To successfully attract this caliber of talent, you must completely dismantle and rebuild the traditional automotive compensation model. The strict, pure flat-rate system is rapidly becoming obsolete because it inherently encourages technicians to rush through repairs, cut corners, and aggressively upsell unnecessary services to protect their own paychecks during slow weeks. It breeds a toxic, cutthroat culture where mechanics hoard profitable repair orders and refuse to assist younger apprentices. Instead, historical trends show that the most successful independent shops in the modern era utilize a hybrid compensation structure. You must offer a highly competitive guaranteed, weekly base salary that provides absolute financial security for the technician and their family, regardless of seasonal weather fluctuations or temporary dips in car count. This base salary eliminates financial anxiety. However, you must couple this secure base with a highly lucrative, tiered production bonus system. For example, you might establish a baseline requirement where the technician must produce 32 billed hours a week to cover their guaranteed salary. Once they cross that 32-hour threshold, every subsequent hour they produce is paid out at a significantly escalated premium rate. If they produce 45 hours, those final 13 hours yield massive financial returns for the technician. This hybrid structure perfectly aligns the financial goals of the employee with the profitability metrics of your enterprise. It guarantees them safety while aggressively rewarding supreme efficiency and deep diagnostic competence. Beyond the hourly wage, you must build a comprehensive corporate benefits package that rivals the massive dealership networks. In the independent repair sector, offering high-quality, employer-subsidized health, dental, and vision insurance is a massive competitive advantage. When you are attempting to recruit a 35-year-old master technician with a spouse and children, a high hourly rate is meaningless if they have to purchase extremely expensive private healthcare on the open market. Furthermore, implementing a retirement savings plan with a standardized company match demonstrates that you are investing in their long-term financial future, not just exploiting their physical labor for short-term gain. You can also implement targeted micro-benefits, such as a weekly tool truck allowance. Providing a top-tier technician with $50 a week strictly allocated to their mobile tool franchise account costs your business a negligible amount annually, but it builds profound, lasting psychological loyalty. The physical environment of your facility is equally critical to retention. You cannot expect a brilliant diagnostic technician to solve complex electrical engineering failures while sweating over a hot engine block in a 100-degree shop. Investing in commercial climate control, industrial high-volume low-speed ceiling fans, brilliant LED bay lighting, and aggressively clean modern restroom facilities elevates the perceived status of the profession. You must create an environment that physically demonstrates your respect for their craft. Finally, you must mandate and entirely fund continuous professional education. The technology entering your bays is evolving exponentially. You must pay for your technicians to attend specialized original equipment manufacturer training seminars, advanced oscilloscope diagnostic classes, and high-voltage safety certifications. Furthermore, you must pay them their standard hourly rate while they are sitting in that classroom. If you force an employee to lose a day of pay to attend training that ultimately benefits your corporate bottom line, you will foster deep resentment. By actively funding their intellectual growth, you build an unstoppable, highly confident diagnostic team that can systematically solve the most complex vehicular failures in your city, allowing you to command the highest premium labor rates in the region. You now have a fully equipped, technologically superior facility, a localized and efficient parts supply chain, and an elite team of highly compensated, aggressively loyal diagnostic technicians ready to work. Your operational capacity is massive. However, this entire infrastructure is completely worthless if your parking lot remains empty. The most common and devastating mistake new owners make is believing that simply providing excellent mechanical service will organically attract enough customers to sustain a high-overhead commercial enterprise. Relying on passive word of mouth in 2026 is a guaranteed path to financial ruin. How do you build an aggressive, multi-channel digital customer acquisition machine that legally intercepts desperate drivers at the exact moment their check engine light illuminates, funneling highly profitable repair orders directly to your service advisors while completely bypassing your local competitors? That is exactly what we are exposing in the next step. Step 6 of your enterprise architecture requires the construction of an aggressive, multi-channel digital customer acquisition machine. The physical location of your facility, the brilliance of your technicians, and the efficiency of your supply chain are completely irrelevant if you do not exist on the smartphone screens of your local demographic. In the year 2026, the concept of drive-by foot traffic or traditional print advertising in the automotive sector is functionally dead. When a modern consumer experiences a mechanical failure, they do not ask a neighbor for a recommendation, and they certainly do not open a physical phone book. They pull out their mobile device, open a search engine, and type in a symptom. They are in a state of high anxiety, their routine has been violently disrupted, and they are seeking an immediate, authoritative solution. Your entire digital strategy must be reverse-engineered to intercept that exact moment of panic and seamlessly funnel that high-intent search directly to your service counter. Consider a historical case study of a highly competent master technician named Marcus, who opened an independent European specialty shop in Denver, Colorado. Marcus possessed an encyclopedic knowledge of complex German engineering. He invested heavily in his physical infrastructure, securing a pristine facility and purchasing the exact original equipment diagnostic software required for his niche. However, Marcus suffered from the fatal delusion that his technical superiority would organically attract a wealthy clientele. He created a basic, unoptimized social media page and launched a free website template that looked atrocious on a mobile phone. When a commuter in his exact zip code experienced a catastrophic cooling system failure and searched for emergency European auto repair, Marcus did not even appear on the first 3 pages of the search results. Consumers in the current digital landscape do not scroll to page 4. They immediately contact one of the top 3 businesses listed in the local map pack. Marcus was invisible to the exact demographic he was equipped to serve. He bled his working capital dry waiting for the phone to ring, and was forced to liquidate his state-of-the-art facility within 9 months. Imagine if Marcus had approached his digital footprint with the same forensic precision he applied to rebuilding a transmission. Imagine if 3 months before his grand opening, he had claimed and meticulously optimized his Google business profile. This specific digital asset is the absolute foundation of local automotive marketing. Simply verifying your address is entirely insufficient. Marcus could have consistently uploaded high-resolution photos of his pristine service bays, his advanced diagnostic interfaces, and his certified technicians actively working on late-model luxury vehicles. He could have categorized his services with exact keyword phrases like Denver European Auto Diagnostics and local Audi timing chain replacement. By treating his business profile as a dynamic, frequently updated portfolio, rather than a static directory listing, the search engine algorithms would have recognized his facility as the ultimate local authority for those specific, high-margin repairs. To dominate your local market, you must understand the architecture of intent-based search marketing. Interruption marketing, such as paying for billboards or randomly boosting posts on social media platforms, yields notoriously low conversion rates because you are showing your advertisement to people who are actively doing something else and likely do not need their car fixed at that exact moment. You must deploy your marketing capital into pay-per-click search campaigns. You are bidding on the exact keywords that indicate distress and immediate purchasing intent. You want your facility to appear at the absolute top of the screen when a user types in phrases like check engine light flashing, car overheating on highway, or mobile towed to mechanic. Historical trends consistently demonstrate that while these specific keywords are expensive to bid on, the return on investment is massive because the conversion rate from a click to a scheduled tow-in is incredibly high. You are paying to step in front of a customer who already has their credit card in hand and desperately needs a solution to their immediate crisis. Furthermore, your physical website cannot function as a simple digital brochure. It must be engineered as a high-speed conversion funnel. When that panicked customer clicks your advertisement, they must land on a site that loads in under 3 seconds on a cellular network. The page must instantly project authority, cleanliness, and competence. The most prominent element on the screen should not be a dense paragraph about your company history. It should be a massive, easily clickable button that says book appointment now or request emergency tow. The website must integrate seamlessly with your shop management software through an application programming interface, allowing the customer to select their vehicle year, make, and model, and physically book a diagnostic time slot directly into your digital dispatch board without ever having to speak to a human being. This frictionless digital experience is exactly what the modern consumer demands. Equally critical to your acquisition strategy is the aggressive, systematic generation of positive digital reviews. In 2026, your online reputation is your absolute currency. A shop with a 4.8-star rating and 600 reviews will completely obliterate a competitor with a 3.2-star rating and 12 reviews, even if the lower-rated shop is $50 an hour cheaper. Consumers happily pay a premium for perceived safety and reduced risk. You cannot passively hope that happy customers will log online to write a review. You must automate the process. The moment your service advisor closes a repair order and processes the final payment, your shop management software must automatically deploy a text message to the customer's phone, thanking them for their business and providing a direct, single-click link to leave a 5-star review on your primary search profile. You must also master the art of public digital diplomacy when handling the inevitable negative reviews. How you respond to a 1-star complaint is often more important to future customers than a dozen 5-star praises. You must never argue, become defensive, or insult the customer online. You must respond quickly, acknowledge their frustration, offer a professional offline resolution, and clearly state your commitment to quality control. Potential outcomes of this professional de-escalation include the angry customer returning to amend their review, but more importantly, it signals to every future reader that your enterprise is operated by rational, accountable professionals. You have now built an unstoppable digital machine. Your local search engine optimization is flawless, your targeted advertisements are intercepting high-value customers, and your automated review system is building a fortress of digital authority. The phone in your facility is finally ringing off the hook, and the online appointments are flooding your dispatch board. Customers are walking through your front door with their keys in hand. But this exact moment introduces the most dangerous bottleneck in the entire automotive industry. If the person standing behind your front counter lacks a structured, psychologically sound sales process, they will confuse the customer, fail to communicate the value of the repair, and lose the sale entirely. How do you implement a standardized service advising protocol that translates highly complex mechanical failures into simple, undeniable logic, thereby drastically increasing your average repair order while maintaining absolute ethical integrity? That is exactly what we are exposing in the next step. Step 7 of your operational blueprint requires mastering the psychology of the service counter. You have spent hundreds of thousands of dollars and countless hours building the perfect facility, sourcing the best technicians, and launching a marketing machine that brings a steady stream of distressed vehicles to your front door. But all of that effort, all of that capital expenditure, funnels down to a single critical interaction that takes place across a 2-foot-wide laminate counter. If the individual standing behind that counter, your service advisor, cannot effectively translate highly complex mechanical data into simple, financially logical decisions for the consumer, your entire enterprise will hemorrhage potential revenue. In the year 2026, the modern consumer is inherently skeptical of the automotive repair industry. Historical trends show that a vast majority of drivers approach a mechanic with their defensive shields fully raised, expecting to be manipulated or overcharged. Your sales process must be explicitly engineered to instantly disarm that skepticism through radical transparency and irrefutable visual evidence. Consider the operational failure of a shop owner named William, operating a high-volume facility in Seattle, Washington. William hired a service advisor who possessed 20 years of experience, but that experience was rooted entirely in an antiquated, high-pressure sales methodology. When a young professional brought in a late-model crossover vehicle for a simple oil change, the technician discovered a severely leaking rack and pinion steering system, a legitimate safety hazard. William's service advisor approached the customer in the waiting room, leaned over the counter, and verbally dumped a barrage of intimidating technical jargon. He rapidly listed off tie rod ends, power steering fluid degradation, and alignment specifications, before sliding a handwritten estimate for $1,800 across the desk and demanding an immediate signature. The customer, overwhelmed, confused, and feeling cornered, simply paid for the $30 oil change, declined all other services, and immediately drove to a competitor for a second opinion. William lost an $1,800 repair order, and more importantly, he permanently lost the lifetime value of that customer, all because the communication strategy was inherently flawed. Imagine if William had implemented a mandatory digital vehicle inspection protocol, often referred to as a DVI. Imagine if, instead of verbally ambushing the customer, the service advisor had simply sent a secure link directly to the customer's smartphone while they were sitting in the waiting room or back at their corporate office. This link would open a highly polished, interactive digital report. The first thing the customer would see is not a price tag, but a high-definition photograph of their exact vehicle sitting on the lift, followed by a short 10-second video recorded by the technician. In this video, the technician physically points a bright flashlight directly at the torn steering rack boot, physically shaking the inner tie rod to demonstrate the dangerous amount of mechanical play, and calmly explaining that this component is what keeps the vehicle driving in a straight line at highway speeds. This visual evidence completely changes the psychological dynamic of the transaction. You are no longer asking the customer to blindly trust the word of a stranger. You are providing them with objective, undeniable proof of the failure. The service advisor is no longer a salesperson. They instantly transform into a trusted consultant, helping the customer navigate a documented mechanical crisis. By utilizing a DVI system natively integrated into your shop management software, you build an impenetrable wall of trust. When the customer can physically see the degraded black brake fluid compared to a vial of clean amber brake fluid right on their screen, the upsell is no longer a high-pressure pitch. It becomes a completely logical, self-directed purchase. To maximize your average repair order or ARO, without ever crossing the line into unethical sales tactics, your service advisor must master the art of tiered estimating. Presenting a customer with a massive single-option estimate of $3,000 will trigger immediate sticker shock and result in a declined repair. Instead, historical case studies of top-performing facilities dictate that every estimate must be structurally categorized into 3 distinct columns. Column 1 represents immediate safety failures, such as bald tires, metal-to-metal brake pads, or the leaking steering rack. The advisor clearly communicates that these items are non-negotiable for the safe operation of the vehicle. Column 2 represents preventive maintenance and impending failures, such as a drive belt exhibiting minor cracking or a transmission fluid service that is slightly past its mileage interval. Column 3 represents cosmetic or long-term considerations. When your advisor presents the data in this structured format, they empower the consumer to make a financially educated decision. Instead of a binary choice of approving or declining a massive bill, the customer can choose to approve the immediate safety items today, while proactively budgeting to return next month for the preventive maintenance tier. This strategy drastically increases customer retention because you are actively managing their vehicle health over a timeline, rather than attempting to extract every possible dollar in a single visit. To maintain this level of performance, you must establish strict daily metrics for your front counter. Your service advisor cannot just be a friendly face. They must operate as a highly analytical production manager. Every morning, they must review the dispatch board and calculate the potential hours available to sell based on the technicians physically present in the building. If you have 4 technicians, you have a baseline of roughly 32 build hours available for that day. The advisor must then track their personal closing ratio. If they present $10,000 worth of recommended repairs utilizing the DVI system, and the customers only approve $2,000, their closing ratio is 20%, which indicates a severe failure in their communication strategy or a lack of visual evidence being provided. A highly trained advisor utilizing the exact protocols we have discussed should consistently maintain a closing ratio of 45 to 55% on all recommended services. By tracking this specific metric daily, you can instantly identify if your advisor needs further training on handling objections, or if your technicians are failing to take clear, compelling photographs of the damaged components. Furthermore, your advisor must be ruthlessly trained to eliminate technical jargon from their vocabulary. The average driver in the United States does not understand what a mass airflow sensor or a catalytic converter physically does. If your advisor attempts to sell a mass airflow sensor by explaining its role in measuring the volume and density of air entering the intake manifold, the customer will mentally check out. The advisor must translate that technical function into a direct, tangible benefit. They must explain that this specific sensor is calculating the fuel mixture, and because it is failing, the engine is currently burning 20% more fuel than necessary. By replacing the sensor, the customer will immediately notice an increase in their fuel economy, effectively paying for the repair over the next few months at the gas pump, while also preventing a catastrophic failure of their emission system. You are selling the financial benefit and the peace of mind, not the piece of plastic and wire. This psychological framework, combining irrefutable visual evidence through a DVI, structured and prioritized estimating and benefit-driven communication, is the ultimate engine for driving massive, ethical profitability. Shops that properly implement this exact protocol routinely see their average repair order double within the first 60 days of deployment, completely transforming their cash flow and allowing them to expand their operations. You now have the facility, the technicians, the parts, the marketing, and a lethal high-converting sales process at the front counter. Repair orders are being approved at record numbers, and gross revenue is flooding into your merchant accounts. But this exact scenario introduces a completely new, often fatal paradox. It is entirely possible to have a parking lot completely full of paying customers, a team of technicians working overtime, $1 million in gross revenue on the books, and still wake up on a Tuesday morning completely unable to make payroll. How do you implement a bulletproof financial tracking matrix, master the flow of working capital, and guarantee that the revenue you generate actually translates into permanent liquid profit? That is exactly what we are exposing in the next step. Step 8 of your operational blueprint requires the ruthless implementation of financial forensics and cash flow management. You can have the most visually stunning facility in your city, the most brilliant diagnostic technicians on your payroll, and a service counter that closes every single repair order. But if you do not fundamentally understand the mathematics of your own money, you are merely running a high-risk, incredibly stressful charity. In the year 2026, the cost of doing business has reached unprecedented heights. Commercial insurance premiums, diagnostic software subscriptions, and highly skilled labor rates have compressed operational margins to their absolute breaking point. The most dangerous phase for any newly established enterprise is not the day you open your doors. It is the moment you achieve the illusion of success. A parking lot packed with customer vehicles and merchant accounts processing thousands of dollars a day creates a blinding sense of financial security that masks deep structural decay. Consider the historical case study of a shop owner named Daniel, operating a rapidly growing independent facility in Orlando, Florida. By his second year of operation, Daniel had achieved what most mechanics only dream of. His shop generated over $1.2 million in gross revenue. His technicians were working flat out, and his service advisor was writing massive tickets. Yet, on the 15th of November, Daniel logged into his commercial banking portal and realized he was completely incapable of covering his $30,000 biweekly payroll. He had to liquidate his personal retirement savings just to keep his employees from walking out. How does a business generate over $1 million and simultaneously face insolvency? Daniel became a victim of the revenue vanity trap. He meticulously tracked how much money was coming into the building, but he possessed absolutely zero visibility regarding his actual profit margins, his unmanaged overhead, and the silent erosion of his working capital. Imagine if Daniel had operated his business like a disciplined chief financial officer rather than a glorified mechanic. Imagine if he had understood the critical distinction between his posted labor rate and his effective labor rate. Your posted labor rate is the arbitrary number painted on the sign above your service counter, perhaps $180 an hour. That number is functionally meaningless. Your effective labor rate is the actual amount of revenue generated for every single hour your technicians physically work, after accounting for every discount, every comeback, every misdiagnosed repair, and every hour of unbilled diagnostic time. Daniel was posting $160 an hour, but because his service advisor was constantly offering 10% discounts to close sales, and his technicians were spending hours diagnosing complex electrical faults for free just to secure the physical repair job, his effective labor rate had collapsed to $85 an hour. He was actively losing money on every vehicle that occupied his lifts, and his massive gross revenue was simply accelerating his trajectory toward bankruptcy. To immunize your enterprise against this silent killer, you must track your key performance indicators on a daily basis, not at the end of the month when your accountant sends you a profit and loss statement. By the time you read a monthly statement, the financial damage is permanent and irreversible. You must implement a daily operating control report within your shop management software. At the close of every single business day, you must know exactly what your effective labor rate was for that specific 8-hour period. If your target is $150 an hour and your daily report shows $110, you must immediately audit the day's repair orders to identify exactly which service advisor discounted labor, or which technician spent 4 hours on a 2-hour job. This level of granular, daily accountability is the only method to prevent microlosses from compounding into a catastrophic financial failure. Furthermore, you must profoundly understand the mathematics of parts profitability. This is where countless highly skilled technicians completely destroy their businesses. The automotive industry operates on margins, not markups, and confusing the two will artificially inflate your projected profits and destroy your cash flow. If you purchase a set of ceramic brake pads for $50 and you apply a 50% markup, you sell them for $75. You might believe you are making a 50% profit. This is mathematically false. Your gross profit on that transaction is $25. 25 divided by your selling price of $75 yields a gross profit margin of exactly 33.3%. In the year 2026, historical trends dictate that a healthy independent repair facility must maintain an overall blended parts gross profit margin of at least 45% to sustain the massive fixed overhead costs of a commercial building. If you are mistakenly operating on a 33% margin because you do not understand the underlying mathematics, you are bleeding thousands of dollars of enterprise value every single month. Beyond the specific metrics of labor and parts, you must construct a fortified system for managing your working capital and your cash flow cycle. Profit on a spreadsheet does not equal cash in your bank account. It is entirely possible to have a highly profitable month on paper, while simultaneously having zero liquid cash to pay your commercial lease. This paradox occurs when your capital is trapped in the wrong places. If you allow your service advisor to order specialized, non-returnable electronic modules for customers who have not paid a substantial upfront deposit, your cash is sitting on a shelf. If you extend net 30 credit terms to commercial fleet accounts but fail to aggressively pursue collections when those invoices hit 45 days past due, your cash is sitting in someone else's bank account. You are effectively acting as an interest-free lender to other businesses while starving your own operation. To build an indestructible financial fortress, you must operate with multiple, strictly segregated commercial banking accounts. The amateur operator dumps all revenue into a single checking account, paying bills, payroll, and personal expenses from a single chaotic pool of capital. The professional enterprise builder utilizes a dedicated income account where all merchant deposits land. From there, capital is strategically transferred to a dedicated payroll account, a dedicated operating expense account, and most importantly, a dedicated tax holding account. Every single week, you must calculate your projected sales tax and payroll tax liabilities, and physically move those funds into an account you never touch for daily operations. If you accidentally utilize tax capital to purchase equipment or cover a slow week, you are not borrowing from your business. You are legally stealing from the federal and state government, and the resulting audits and penalties can force the immediate liquidation of your corporate entity. Finally, you must ruthlessly build a liquid cash reserve. The automotive repair industry is highly seasonal and inherently unpredictable. A major road construction project in front of your facility can instantly reduce your car count by 40% for a month. A freak winter storm can paralyze your parts supply chain. Historical survival rates heavily favor operations that maintain an absolute minimum of 3 months of fixed operating expenses in a highly liquid, easily accessible savings account. This capital is never used for expansion, it is never used for equipment upgrades, and it is never used for owner bonuses. It is your ultimate insurance policy against the unpredictable chaos of the broader economy. You have now mastered the complex mathematics of enterprise management. Your effective labor rate is optimized, your parts margins are dialed in, your cash flow is strictly regulated, and your business is generating significant, predictable liquid profit month after month. You have successfully transitioned from a mechanic to an executive. But as your success compounds, a completely new and terrifying reality sets in. Your business is highly profitable, but it is completely dependent on your physical presence to enforce these operational standards. If you take a 2-week vacation, the efficiency collapses, the sales plummet, and the culture degrades. You have not built a true enterprise. You have simply built yourself a highly lucrative, inescapable prison. How do you fully systematize your operation, extract yourself from the daily friction of the service counter, and position the business for massive multi-location scalability or a highly lucrative private equity acquisition? That is exactly what we are exposing in the final step. Step 10 is the total extraction of your physical labor from the daily operations of the facility. You have successfully navigated the transition from a flat-rate technician to a highly profitable business owner. Your bays are full, your effective labor rate is optimized, and your bank accounts are fortified with liquid cash reserves. But if the entire operation grinds to a catastrophic halt the moment your cell phone loses signal on a family vacation, you do not own a business. You have simply built yourself a highly lucrative, inescapable prison. Historical industry data from the year 2026 reveals that the majority of independent auto repair shop owners suffer from severe burnout by year 7 because they refuse to relinquish absolute control. They insist on writing every single complex estimate, personally diagnosing the most difficult electrical failures, and micromanaging the parts procurement process. This hero complex limits the revenue ceiling of the facility to the exact number of hours the owner can physically stay awake. Consider the historical case study of an operator named Richard, who built a highly successful 3-bay operation in Atlanta, Georgia. Richard was a brilliant diagnostician and a charismatic service advisor. His shop generated $2 million in gross revenue annually. However, Richard was the ultimate bottleneck. When he attempted to take his first 2-week vacation in 5 years, the operational structure collapsed. His service advisors, lacking clear parameters for discounting, began slashing prices to close difficult sales because they lacked the confidence to sell on value. The technicians, lacking Richard to verify their diagnostic paths, fired the parts cannon at complex vehicle failures, resulting in massive comebacks, furious customers, and destroyed profit margins. Upon his return, Richard had to work 80-hour weeks for a month just to repair the financial and reputational damage. He realized his business possessed zero enterprise value because the entire asset was entirely dependent on his physical presence and his personal technical knowledge. Imagine if Richard had spent the previous 12 months meticulously engineering standard operating procedures for every single micro-interaction within his facility. A true enterprise operates on identical, predictable systems regardless of who is standing behind the counter. You must document exactly how the front door is unlocked in the morning, how the coffee station is prepared, and the exact script the service advisor utilizes when answering the telephone. This is not micromanagement. This is operational freedom. You must create highly detailed written flowcharts for the diagnostic process. If a vehicle presents with a specific parasitic battery drain, your technicians should not be guessing the next step or waiting for your personal instruction. They should refer to the standardized diagnostic procedure manual that outlines the exact voltage drop testing sequence required by your specific facility. You must have an ironclad standard operating procedure for comebacks. When a vehicle returns with the same issue, the emotion must be removed. The documented procedure dictates exactly who handles the customer, how a rental car is authorized, and how the root cause analysis is performed without pointing fingers. By systematizing the mechanical and administrative processes, you eliminate operational variance. When a new employee is hired, they are not relying on tribal knowledge passed down through the shop. They are trained strictly on the documented corporate system. Once your systems are structurally sound and heavily documented, you must execute the most difficult psychological transition in the automotive industry. You must hire a professional general manager and physically remove yourself from the building. The most common and fatal mistake owners make during this phase is simply promoting their best master technician to the general manager position. Being a brilliant mechanic requires an entirely different psychological profile than managing human capital, resolving escalated customer disputes, and analyzing financial key performance indicators. When you promote your best technician, you frequently lose your highest producing asset in the shop and simultaneously gain a completely incompetent manager. You must hire a seasoned leader who understands retail psychology, conflict resolution, and operational flow. During the interview process, you do not ask them about engine timing. You ask them how they would handle a situation where the parts margin has slipped to 30% and the effective labor rate is dropping. You need an operator who understands the mathematics of the business. You must compensate this general manager with a base salary that provides complete financial security, but heavily incentivize them with a structured profit-sharing agreement tied directly to the net operating profit of the facility, not the gross revenue. If you pay a manager based on gross revenue, they will aggressively pack the schedule with low margin, high-volume work simply to inflate their bonus, while completely destroying your facility efficiency and exhausting your technicians. By tying their compensation directly to the net profit, you align their financial success entirely with the financial health of your enterprise. They will meticulously police the effective labor rate, aggressively negotiate with parts vendors to maintain the required 45% gross profit margin, and ruthlessly eliminate wasteful operational spending because every dollar saved directly increases their personal paycheck. With a highly competent general manager executing your flawless standard operating procedures, your facility will run at maximum profitability whether you are in the building or across the country. This total extraction is the absolute prerequisite for massive scalability. If your model operates perfectly without you, you can now duplicate that exact model in a neighboring demographic territory. You take the exact same floor plan, the exact same equipment allocation strategy, the exact same digital marketing campaigns, and the exact same operational manuals, and you deploy them into a second, third, and fourth facility. You leverage your centralized purchasing power to negotiate massive volume discounts with your primary parts distributors, significantly increasing the profit margins across all of your locations. You can afford to hire a dedicated corporate diagnostic specialist who floats between your facilities, handling only the most severe controller area network failures, elevating the technical capability of your entire enterprise. You transform from a local garage owner into a regional automotive executive. This multi-location, highly systematized model leads directly to the ultimate financial culmination of your entrepreneurial journey. In the year 2026, private equity firms and massive national consolidators are actively hunting for highly profitable, owner-absent independent auto repair chains. They are not interested in buying a job where the owner is the primary mechanic. They are strictly looking to acquire cash-flowing assets with clean financial books and scalable systems. When you approach the market with a 3-location enterprise that generates a heavily documented, predictable earnings before interest, taxes, depreciation, and amortization, commonly referred to as EBITDA, you are no longer selling a dirty garage. You are selling a sophisticated corporate asset. Historical trends dictate that highly systematized automotive enterprises command massive acquisition multiples. A buyer will aggressively audit your customer retention metrics, your technician turnover rate, and your effective labor rate. Because you have meticulously tracked your key performance indicators, completely audited your environmental liabilities, and removed your physical labor from the daily operations, your business presents almost zero transition risk to the acquiring firm. They can seamlessly plug your locations into their massive national network. A well-structured exit can yield a highly lucrative liquidity event, completely changing your financial trajectory. This exact methodology transforms the agonizing, physically destructive career of a flat-rate mechanic into the creation of generational legacy wealth. You have not just built a shop that fixes cars. You have engineered an incredibly rare, highly liquid financial asset. But building this empire requires ruthless discipline, a willingness to confront your own operational weaknesses, and the complete abandonment of the traditional mechanic mindset. The blueprint is now entirely in your hands. The demographic data is available, the commercial real estate is waiting, and the market is desperately demanding high-level, technologically fluent diagnostic facilities. Your next immediate action will determine if you remain trapped under a lift for the next 20 years, or if you begin the systematic construction of your own automotive enterprise. The decision is yours, and the work begins the exact moment this video ends. Let us dive into exactly how to structure your daily schedule starting tomorrow morning to ensure your first facility opens with massive, unstoppable momentum.